Mr. Chairman, with your permission, if I may just say that in some ways, the malice that prevails in this country is represented in this House as we speak.
Awaz Sahab, disturb ho rahi hain.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, there is the legal way of doing things, there is the constitution, there is how things are meant to be done, and there is how things are done. Now, legally and technically, the process that we're going through is the budget approval process. This House is the only entity mandated to be able to approve any penny of expenditure, be it for any entity and for all government expenditure. I do not see any presence from the Ministry of Finance which is worth mentioning. The people who are involved in the entire budget-making process, determining the priorities of this country's spending, I see no one represented, Mr. Speaker. And I feel that we are indeed now wasting the time and, frankly speaking, finances of this country, which is already finance-starved, by going through the processes and not being able to get anything, because Mr. Hamad Azhar Saab, hum bahut sare aapki respect karte hain, but you are Minister for Industry and you are, I know, not really involved with the budgetary making process. So you can appoint whoever you wish to appoint as advisors, but at least tell them to show some even fake respect to this House by attending to the suggestions which are coming from the Senate at this time.
Hina Rabani, Khar Sahiba, Hamad Azhar Sahab Minister बैठे हैं और आपके points भी ले रहे हैं.
Mr. Chairman साहब, आपके वालिद के साथ भी जी मैं colleague रह चुकी हूँ. आप बहुत respectable, you know how politics and the government works, and you know that the Minister of Industries has very little to do with it. So he's there in attendance and he's listening. But what I'm saying is, are we here just to talk and just to score points? I like to believe that our purpose in doing some homework and in making some points goes beyond just making points. I like to believe that all of us are here to contribute to a better resource allocation, Mr. Chairman, and that is what a budgetary process is all about, because the pie is limited and the weight on the pie, or the resources that are required to be able to fulfill all the urgent needs of this country and its population are far more. So I would like to believe that this should not be an exercise in futility. Now, Mr. Speaker, as I said, I will just concern myself with 4 specific, what I consider to be exceptionally important recommendations which have come from the Senate. And I will start with recommendation number 56. The Senate of Pakistan recommends to the National Assembly that all important debt agreements must be placed before the Parliament for scrutiny immediately. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister spoke ad nauseum about the debt situation of this country prior to his taking power and how the previous governments made the debt situation, gave him a debt burden that was impossible to deal with. Now, Mr. Speaker, I have over here the Economic Survey of Pakistan, annexures page number 59, which tells you that from 2012 to 13, because again, numbers में हमेशा कहा जाता है, hey, फिर हो गया, आपने ये number किया, आपने वो number किया. Let's talk as a percentage of GDP. Debt servicing as a percentage of GDP, because that obviously none of us can, contest this number. It's an uncontestable number. So from 2012 to 13 till today, these are the figures that you've given. The debt servicing as a percentage of GDP was always in the range of 5.4 to 5.8 maximum. In your previous year, it was 8.1, and provisionally only up till March, it is 6.1. Now let's go to the specific numbers. Public debt, right? Because every government which has come has said that we are carrying the burden of the previous government. Every government which has come, since as long as I remember, says कि हम पे कर्जे छोड़ गए, हम तो इनके कर्जे बुकताते आगे. But numbers don't lie, Mr. Speaker. Certainly percentages don't lie, right? So I gave you a percentage of GDP, which should be, I believe, the most pertinent, specific number, right? Now, if you want to go into the nominal figures, then आप कहते हैं कि जी आपने इतना डबल कर दिया. मानते हैं, आपको मैं बता देती हूँ, 2008 में जब पीपल्स पार्टी हुकूमत में आई, 6.1 ट्रिलियन था आपका टोटल पब्लिक डेट. Again, an uncontestable figure, coming from the Economic Survey of Pakistan, page number 171. 2013 में जब PMLN की हुकूमत आई, तो ये कर्जे जा चुके थे 14.2 ट्रिलियन पे. So from 6.1, they had gone to 14.1 trillion. Then in 2018, वो जा चुके थे 24.9 ट्रिलियन पे. Mr. Chairman, as we speak, up till March 2020, they have gone up to 35.2 trillion. That's an increase of 11 trillion rupees in the last year plus, in the last less than 2 years. So the context of what we say is exceptionally important. Therefore, this recommendation of the Senate, I fully endorse it, Mr. Speaker, and our party endorses it for the reason that taking on debt must be for the benefit of the poor of this country, for the citizens of this country. Another interesting detail, which frankly speaking I couldn't find the figure in any of the documents which are available with us, is that a lot of loans are taken in where you have to pay commitment charges without the loans being utilized. Hamad Sahab? I'm speaking about the commitment charges that we end up paying. And if in your winding up, if you can tell us what is the total quantum of commitment charges that Pakistan is paying on loans which have been committed by the ADB and the World Bank and many other multilateral and bilateral institutions. However, you are never able to utilize those loans, and you know what happens? Without using that money, you end up paying interest on it, and on top of paying interest on unutilized loans, you actually also end up paying commitment charges in millions of dollars. Mr. Chairman, I believe this country can't afford that. Therefore, every document, every loan document, as this recommendation number 56 says, must be placed before the Parliament. I think the Parliament is best placed to be able to scrutinize it and to be able to make sure that it fits within the priority list of this country. Mr. Speaker, the second recommendation I would like to talk about in certain detail is the Senate of Pakistan recommends to the National Assembly that the budgetary allocation of Higher Education Commission should be enhanced to 100 billion. Mr. Speaker, again, an exceptionally important point. For the simple reason, Mr. Speaker, that we, in the resource allocation that we do, we demarcate what will determine the future of this country. We demarcate which direction do you want this country to take. Do you want to ensure that the youth bulge is an educated youth, one which is a source of progress and development to this country, or a youth which does not have access to education even if they want it, right? So clearly we are all on the same page, all members of Parliament, all parties, that Higher Education Commission and higher education is something that they should get adequate resource allocation. Now let me tell you the reality, Mr. Speaker, and again these are coming from figures which are in the economic survey, or demands for grants for appropriation. Mr. Speaker, I saw something which I have never seen in documents, in government documents. On page number 71 of demands for grants and appropriation, on the heading under the head of HEC, Mr. Speaker, there is no actual expenditure for 2018-19 given. It's a blank column. There is no budget estimate of 2019-20 given. Again, a blank column. No revised estimate for 2019-20 given. Blank column. And then there is 2020-2021 budget estimate of 64 billion. I just fail to understand how is that even possible for something like this to be printed. This looks like exceptionally irresponsible behavior. So I go back and try and figure out what the numbers were, Mr. Speaker, and you find out from previous economic surveys. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I want this House to take notice of this, because you cannot place documents in front of this House which are empty, which are half-filled. And we would want an explanation to this. Page number 71, demands for grants and appropriations. Mr. Speaker, we find out that in 2019-20 जो नया पाकिस्तान बनाने वाली हुकूमत जब आई, तो 2018-19 में जो the HEC asked for 103.5 billion as its allocation. The HEC was told that they could only be allocated 58 billion. That is half of what the HEC asked for. Interestingly, that happens to be even less than what the PMLN government had allocated to the HEC in the previous year. Unbelievable, does it not seem? This doesn't look like the right priority that you want to pursue. Then you find out that in the development budget also, they were only given 29 out of the 55 billion that they had asked for. And the actual allocation was about 29.47. Mr. Speaker, this year too, as I'm showing you from this document, the allocation that has been made is 64 billion rupees. This is clearly not in line with the requirements, Mr. Speaker, and therefore you have the Chairman HEC, who was left with no option but